Hi, welcome back to Wallflowers. So today we're looking at rehydrating. Now, with the climate that we're in, um, dehydrating even, Mr. Wallflowers, well done. Dehydrating we're looking at. So with the climate that we're in, as I was saying, we're expecting blackout, we're expecting lots of difficulties buying from shops, food initiatives, wherever it is that we source our food from. So I feel at the moment for me, dehydrating is something that I specifically have to concentrate on. And that means looking at the problems of dehydrating as well as the benefits. So the benefits, let me start with you barely lose any nutrients through dehydrating. You certainly lose a lot more through freezing, canning, etc., than you would dehydrating. And the shelf space that you save through dehydrating is astronomical. Just for instance, that is um, 12 onions in that jar. So if I was to can that and say I got 3 onions in a jar, it'd still be 4 jars worth on a shelf. So I can fit 12 onions in that jar rather than, 3 or 4 jars of canned goods. So, you can do a really big bulk. If I use a jar much bigger than that and I dehydrate, I can still fit everything into one jar and it's saving a lot of space. As I say, the nutrients are virtually the same as fresh food. And then to rehydrate it, you don't even need to use hot water. You can literally sit them for 30 minutes to an hour in cold water and they'll reconstitute into the fresh vegetable. There's a number of ways you can do it. For instance, these are carrots that I've not long just done. I've not sealed this jar yet. They look a bit gnarly, they look completely and utterly dried up. But if they were left for half an hour to an hour in cold water, they will reconstitute into the medallion slices of carrots that we're used to. And in that jar alone is 7 large carrots. So rather than let them sit in the fridge and go black before I got to use them or have to freeze them and use up that freezer space, they're now sitting in that jar quite happily and I can keep canning away, and if I need to move them into a bigger jar, keep dehydrating away, and if I need to move them into a bigger jar, then so be it, and I'll have a supply of carrots come winter and beyond. So basically you'd use half a cup. People often ask me about the cup measurement, and basically I use something this size as a cup measurement. So a quarter to half a cup is sufficient for 2 people. So if I was to that would be the portion out of that jar for myself and Mr. Wallflowers, and that would be sufficient as a side with other vegetables for an evening meal. Obviously, if I was doing a 4-portion, 6-portion meal, I'd use more. So I'm just building that up. So as you can see here in the dehydrator, I have 4 different vegetables that I've just dehydrated, and they're all near enough ready to go. So I've got some peppers, I've got a few carrots, I've got onions, and I've got celery. So when I have finished dehydrating those are all going in one jar all together and will be basically a soup or a stew mix. And now I have the new jar, excuse me, Mr. Wallflowers. Now I have the new jar vacuum sealer. I'll be assured of them being vacuum sealed, because the problems I wanted to discuss today is, yes, I have been dehydrating for a while now, but there are problems with storage. Now I've done this basil and it's absolutely perfect. I've dehydrated it and I've powdered it and it stayed fresh in this jar. Now this is just an old Dow coffee jar, and it's sufficient for now, but today, tomorrow, as I'm working my way through, it will be moved into a fully, properly vacuum sealed jar. So I have this basil. Yes, I can add to it, and yes, I can just use a tablespoon here and there for whatever meals I need. This jar's fully vacuum sealed in a new vacuum sealer. This one's powdered and dehydrated leeks, which I use on a regular basis and is doing okay in this jar. The onions and carrots are something that I've just done this week. But these are mishaps. I always like to be honest and talk about mishaps. I'm never embarrassed if my meals don't look great because they're tasty. This isn't about looking the trendiest, looking the best. I really don't give a damn if people think it looks ugly or it doesn't look appetizing. As long as myself and Mr. Wallflowers enjoy the food that we're providing, I'm quite happy with that. It's about quality and taste. It doesn't have to be decorative, doesn't have to be appealing to everyone else. As long as we're enjoying the food we eat, I'm quite happy. But as I say, these are mishaps. So basically, this one is garlic salt. Now I peeled a quantity of garlic. I added pink Himalayan salt. I powdered it and it stayed fresh for a number of weeks. It's only in an old herb jar and it's broken. And nothing is protecting it to keep it airtight. So as you can see, it's gone rock solid. Now I did that a number of months ago. I don't feel it's safe to eat that now because it's probably got bacteria in it, because the moisture is obviously in it. And when you dehydrate food and they're totally dry, you're removing all the moisture and it's unable to grow the bacteria, it's unable to grow the mold. Mold and stuff doesn't grow on a dry area, it grows in a moist area. And unfortunately, this has gotten moist because it's not in the right container, it hasn't been dealt with properly, and I've lost that garlic salt. That's one that will be thrown away. This is a load of flaxseed, which was actually shop bought. I didn't actually do this myself, it was actually shop bought. Now it looks okay from that side, but from that side it's clumping to the glass. And again, this is a number of months old. Because the moisture has been allowed to sit there for such a while, I do believe there'll be mould and it'll affect the rest of the flaxseed in there. I normally enjoy a tablespoon of flaxseed in my porridge. I've used it in bacon, I use it in different things. You can actually, this was for me in case I couldn't get eggs because it's difficult to get eggs at a decent price these days. And if you use 2 tablespoons of flaxseed with a bit of water rehydrated, you can use that as an egg replacement in baking or in other recipes. So flaxseed is quite useful. So I need to replace my flaxseed and I need to store it in a better vacuumed airtight jar or with the process of using the vacuum sealer. So again, another one wasted. This is absolutely an awful waste. A couple of months ago, I had a whole sack of organic turmeric. I peeled it, chopped it, dehydrated it, powdered it, did everything beginning to end for myself. And unfortunately, I let myself down on the storage side because I knew no better. We have to forgive ourselves for not knowing any better. But as we learn and we go along, then we have to correct it because otherwise we'll make ourselves sick by eating this food. So as you can see, the moisture's gradually crept in and the whole 2/3 of the jar at the bottom is stuck. Now it's all very well you're saying, yeah, you can, put a knife in and loosen it all up. Moisture has sat in, that's mold, that's bacteria. It's been sat there for too long and it has to go. So although I like the turmeric, and although it's really useful in a lot of recipes, that has to go and I have to start again. So that's another one. And unfortunately the ginger. Now although the ginger hasn't stuck to the bottom, I'm not sure if Mr. Wallflowers can show you, but it's actually clumped. And the clumping there is again patches of mold. Now, there's no point me scooping that out and taking it out when it's been in the same jar for quite a few months and the rest of it will all be affected. The bag in it, you can see there's an oxygen absorber, but because the jar isn't maintaining the vacuum seal, the oxygen absorber is no good in this instance. It's only as good as the airtight environment that it's in. So again, that's a waste of a load of ginger. So I'm quite fortunate. I can get ginger on a regular basis. So I can start again. I can build my ginger supply up because I like having ginger. Soups, casseroles, things like that. We do Chinese meals quite frequently, and I like the taste of the ginger in the food, and I like the convenience of being able to just put a tablespoon here and there in. So unfortunately, that's gone. So that's four nice things that I enjoy have to be done again. And I'm glad I've seen it now before I desperately need it and can't replace it. We're possibly looking at January, February is when the consensus of when these blackouts might be. So yeah, we've got 3 months possibly of being able to do as much dehydrating as we can. If you can to can some food, preserve, put some away, and just work out what you can use from the freezer. If we're going to lose electricity and you have your freezer fully stocked, it's going to be an awful waste if that electricity just goes out and you haven't got, like myself, a generator or anything else to maintain that electricity to keep the freezer going. What are you going to do? Because, yeah, feast or famine, you can have a nice big feast for as long as it lasts, keeping it cool in the fridge, but it's buggered then. You can't eat it after that. You'll just make yourself sick. So there are ways of dehydrating meat. Unfortunately, with the style of dehydrator I have, my temperatures only actually go up to 70 degrees, is it 70 Celsius? Now, the Americans use ones called Excalibur and different types, and they go, I think they literally go to 190, 200 or higher. And I would love one of those, but at the moment, I just can't afford to take the chance and spend that amount of money because I don't know how much my mortgage is going to be next month or the month after. So I'm spending little increments of money to try and keep myself fed, but to spend 100 or over, I'm quite nervous about. Yeah, I'm supposed to be investing in a fireplace that will save me all the fuel for the winter. And I'm a bit nervous about that, to tell you the truth, at the moment. I'm nervous to spend any money that I might have. To other people, it'd be buttons. To me, it's the earth. But to spend £200 or £300 on a new dehydrator, yes, I would love the benefit of it, and yes, it would get used, but it's an awful amount of money out of our budget to be able to do that. So unfortunately, I have to say no to myself. If you can afford it, so long as you're going to dehydrate on a regular basis, even just for the next few months to get as much stock as you can, if you can afford it, I'd highly recommend you do that and get the best quality one you can. So long as you know how to store it. It's all right being able to dehydrate it, but you have to know how to store it as well. Then fine. But at the moment, could we tighten our belt any further? I don't think so. Could we stop ourselves from splashing out any further? I don't think so. I'm saying no to myself on a daily basis at the moment. And chipping away at the things that I have at my fingertips to be able to use. That's all we can do. Use what you've got. Use what you've got to the best of your ability. If you haven't even got one of these, I think this cost me £37 on eBay or Amazon, one of those. Prior to that, I was dehydrating in the oven. So basically, you put it in the oven, you leave the oven door slightly ajar, you have it on the lowest temperature. But yeah, again, it's a few hours each time. It can be 6 to 8 hours each time. So Dehydrators are lighter on the electricity than the electric oven would be. Obviously, electric oven costs a lot more to use. And to use at 8 hours, 6 hours at a time is a lot for us at the moment. So you have to have the balance. It can be done so long as it's within your means to do it. I feel like I'm rambling at the moment, but I'm just trying to express the pros and cons of both sides. I mean, the ultimate negative side of it is we can't get to the shops. We've got no diesel, we've got no petrol in the vehicles, we can't get to the shops to do the shop. The public transport isn't on. When we do get to the shops, even if we walk there, there's barely anything on the shelves, especially not fresh vegetables. We need to feed the family, we need to feed ourselves. What do we do? Yeah, we can keep living off the tins. Yeah, we can scrummage a meal together. We've always been able to do that. But once we've been scrummaging and scrummaging and scrummaging, we might only have a few jars of herbs. We might only have a few jars of vegetables if you've come this far to be able to do it. And then you've got a pan of soup that you may have been able to cook on the garden fire, and that pan of soup can feed your family for a week, 3 or 4 days. So long as you all share it all out and keep having a hot meal throughout the day, we'll get through it, we'll survive. If we haven't got even the basic of anything to fall back on, because you've ate them tins of hot dogs, you've ate them tins of spam, you've ate all the tins of rice pudding because you wanted a little treat, what's left? Someone's took a spoon to the peanut butter and all the peanut butter's gone. These things will happen because we get greedy. We want to feed ourselves because we're hungry. Even in a family where we all love each other, that will happen. So we have to have things that they're not just going to pick and eat out the jar, things that you have to create a meal with. So along with that means putting some water aside. When the electricity goes off, there'll be so much in the tanks, even outside, whether it's a council estate, whether it's a private estate, wherever you happen to live, the tanks will only last so long with the flushing of toilets, the running of baths, the showers, the running of the taps, and the washing machines whilst they're on. Once that goes off and the tanks get depleted, the water will be full of bacteria because it won't be filtered through. If any water comes through, it won't be clean, safe water once everything's shut down. So, you know, you need to store it in a food container. So whether that be washed out milk bottles, washed out lemonade or water bottles, etc. So long as it's a food grade container, put some water aside. As I say, with my family, just me and Mr. Wallflowers at the moment, we probably go through about 4 litres a day. That's cooking food and drinking hot drinks. On top of that, if we couldn't flush a toilet, um, if we couldn't have a washing, in the sink with tap water, what are we going to do? We're going to have to use our filtered water. Becky's over there. We're going to have to use our filtered water. So we have to be able to generate or store. If you can store it now, fine. A lot of people don't have a problem with drinking tap water. I just prefer not to. If you can store enough with milk bottles and you think, right, say for instance, it goes out for 10 days. At 4 litres a day for 2 people, just for drinks and food, that's an awful lot of water based over 10 days. It's 40 litres of water. That's an awful lot of water. Where you're going to store it, what you're going to do. At least put a little aside, even if you can't call for everything. If you have to use the dirty bacterial water out the tap that comes through because the tanks are emptied, you can flush the toilet with that. If we have to go for a wash for that a few days, that's what we're going to have to do. You can't go without a drink for 10 days. You can't go for a drink without for 3 days. You need to drink. We need to be able to eat. It needs to be safe. Okay, that's my whinging for the day. Lovely chatting to you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.